And now let's try and tune in to no good music from an undisclosed location somewhere in New Jersey.
She don't give a crap about her bad reputation.
He can't smile too much, right? Because he's trying to play saxophone.
Yeah. And then there's a guy with a deep voice every once in a while going, yeah. That was his only job.
And I was parking. I look up on a marquee, and there's my name.
He looked like he was out of a horror movie, and he was thinking of something devious.
I'm a rock and roll guy.
Hey everybody, this is Rob.
And Jeremy.
And we are back with a new show. I was trying to think of a name for this show where we just talk about music news, and maybe just be the music show, or maybe we don't need a name. I don't know. Because we really don't have a main topic. We have a bunch of segments. Oh, and I have a new segment, believe it or not. It's going to be very short, the new segment. And it's called What's in Rob's Vinyl Pile?
Oh, okay.
Which is over there. And just albums that I'm planning on listening to that I pulled out of my collection.
All right.
Which I'm almost up to 500 albums now.
We need the
random... God, I'm gonna keep hitting this mic.
The random vinyl chill again.
What was that?
We need the random vinyl chill again.
The random vinyl chill.
Yeah. When you were pulling albums just out of nowhere and you were listening to like Yankee Doodle Dandy and stuff.
Oh, the mystery box.
Yeah.
I have another mystery box. Okay.
I used to love the suspense of seeing what you were going to pull out of those. I was keeping it a secret,
but I have another box of 25 albums.
Oh, nice.
That I have no idea what's in there. I got them for like, I get them for like $30 or something. I don't know.
Okay.
People who don't know, I did this mystery box and that I got off of eBay. Some guy was selling most of his collection, but just where you would get random out. You didn't know what you were getting.
Well, you literally didn't know what you were getting because some of the albums didn't match what was actually inside.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were a couple ones in there. Men at Work, which I think I gave you.
You gave that to me, yeah. I was excited.
And the first Crosby, Stills and Nash album was in there. But, you know, some Guy Lombardo and Barry Manilow. And I ended up actually putting them in the recycling.
Oh my God.
Yeah. What am I going to do with them? Melt them down into bowls, I guess. So anyway, we're going to start with album anniversaries. And we've been doing 50, 40, 30. But I've added 60 just to this one.
Must be something good. So
we're talking April 1964. It's the Rolling Stones debut album.
Yeah, that's a good one.
April 17th. And it's a self-titled album. And of course, they're English rock band Rolling Stones. And the American edition of the LP with a slightly different track list came out on London Records on May 29th. So we're going to talk about it now. And that was subtitled England's Newest Hitmakers, which later became its official title. So it was recorded at Regent Sound Studios in London over the course of 5 days, just 5 days, in January and February 1964. And the album was produced by then managers Andrew Loog Oldham, bad with the names, as we know, Oldham, and Eric Easton, not to be confused with Elliot Easton from the Cars. The majority of the tracks reflect the band's love of R&B, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, whose professional name until 1978, did you know this, omitted the S in his surname.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. It used to be Keith Richard. So they were, it says, fledgling songwriters, early 64, and they contributed only one original composition to the album. Tell Me You're Coming Back. The album went to number 1 in the UK and number 11 in the US. So then we have another album, the Beatles' second album, April 10th, talking about 1964. And it's actually called the Beatles' second album. I just got it. I don't see it. Well, I don't have it here with me. But so it is their second album released by Capitol Records. Their third album, and it's their third album released in the United States, which I never understood. But I don't know. Maybe those are compilation something. I don't know why there would be more in the U.S. than the UK.
Interesting.
Following its release in April 1964, the Beatles' second album replaced Meet the Beatles at number 1 on Billboard Top LPs chart in the US. Now the album here, this one, it was mostly compiled from leftover tracks from the UK album with the Beatles and the Long Tall Sally EP. Among critics, it's considered the band's purest rock and roll album and praised for its soulful takes on both contemporary black music hits and original material. And in 2004, the Beatles' second album was issued for the first time on compact disc as part of the Capitol album's Volume 1 box set, and it was issued in a miniature cardboard replica of the original album sleeve containing the US mono and stereo mixes. And as we all know, the Beatles were never heard from again. Okay. So we are at April 1974. We have some music news. April 5th, Van Halen played their first show on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. April 6th, fans attend the California Jam Rock Festival, 200,000.
Nice.
Artists performing: Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, the Eagles, and more. Swedish group ABBA on April 6th wins the 19th Eurovision Song Contest in England with the song Waterloo, kick-starting their international career. April 16th, Queen play their first North American concert, opening for Mott the Hoople.
Oh, wow.
In Colorado. April 25th, we have some sad news. Pam Morrison, I didn't even know this, Jim Morrison's widow, is found dead in her Hollywood apartment from an apparent heroin overdose.
Wow.
You always hear about Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
And we're talking, 1974. Okay, albums we have April 12th, Casey and the Sunshine Band make their debut.
Wow. With
the album Do It Good. Do It Good had little mainstream impact in the United States, despite catchy tracks like Sound Your Funky Horn. The album was focused towards an upbeat funk, which would later turn into disco. The album was remastered and reissued with bonus tracks in 2012 by Big Break Records. We didn't really need that. Okay, I'm going to have to figure out something. Okay, we have April 15th. Leonard Skinner releases their second studio album called Second Helping. And it features the band's biggest hit single, Sweet Home Alabama. And it was an answer to Neil Young's Alabama and Southern Man, which reached number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Second Helping reached number 12 on the Billboard Albums chart. Okay, and we have honorable mention. Have you ever heard of the band called Elf?
Yes.
So they put out an album called Carolina County Ball. And it's the second studio album by the rock band Elf, which was led by Ronnie James Dio.
Yep. I didn't remember how I knew the name of that band, but that's what it was.
Yeah, so this is I've heard the first one. I was surprised. It's a blues album. I don't know if this one is, it doesn't say, and I haven't listened to it. But this would be actually Elf's next to last album, so they put out 3 albums.
Makes sense. I have a feeling he went on to do bigger and better things.
He did?
Call it a hunch.
Yeah. So now we're on to April 1984. REM Reckoning. April 9th. This is the second studio album by the American alternative rock band REM, produced by Mitch Easter and Don Dixon. The album was recorded at Reflections Sound Studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. 16 days, December 83 to January 84. Released to critical acclaim, Reckoning reached number 27 in the United States, and it was certified gold, and peaked at number 91 in the United Kingdom. That's not great. Now, this was their final project with longtime producer Mitch Easter. After the debut, Murmur in 83, After it received critical acclaim, REM quickly began working on their second album. They wrote new material, and lead guitarist Peter Buck recalled, "We were going through the streak where we were writing 2 good songs a week. We just wanted to do it. Whenever we had a new batch of songs, it was time to record." So because they were recording so many songs at the time, Peter Buck unsuccessfully tried to convince everyone to make the next album a double album.
Yeah.
So in November 83, the band recorded 22 songs during a session with Neil Young producer Elliot Mazar in San Francisco. And the recording sessions were difficult for singer Michael Stipe, who was particularly worn out by the band's 1983 tour schedule. So getting usable vocal tracks from Michael was difficult. Dixon recalled that he and Stipe would show up around noon each day before the rest of the band, but that he was kind of shut down and it was difficult to get him to open up. And while recording the song 7 Chinese Brothers, Michael Stipe sang so quietly that Dixon could not hear him on the tape.
Huh.
Frustrated, the producer climbed a ladder to a spot above the recording booth Stipe was in and found a gospel record titled "The Joy of Knowing Jesus" by the Revelaires, which he then handed to the singer in an attempt to inspire him.
Huh.
That's weird.
Yeah.
He handed him an album. So Michael Stipe began reciting the liner notes from the album audibly, which enabled Dixon to move on to recording the vocal track properly. I guess he just needed a warm-up.
I didn't realize, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I didn't realize REM was so early in the 80s. I thought they were more of a late 80s, early 90s band.
No, I don't know when I listened to them first, but I remember Document, which was probably 87. Okay. 88 was really big.
Because I stumbled on them with my Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, kind of like that genre of bands.
I don't think they weren't really radio friendly until Losing My Religion.
Which was that, the 90s?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even remember the first couple albums, first 3 or 4, and like I said, Document was 87. That was huge with college radio and stuff that I was listening to then, like a lot of alternative music.
Okay, interesting.
You know, like Depeche Mode and
yeah.
Even like Echo and the Bunnymen and stuff like that. So some of my favorite songs, and I actually just listened to this. I have all the REM CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Is of course Don't Go Back to Rockville, Pretty Persuasion. I love that song. And there's an obscure one on there, which maybe not a lot of people like, but I like the way the song flows. Is Time After Time, and it's not the Cyndi Lauper. That's actually Time After Time. Annalise, it's called.
Okay.
If you don't remember that one or haven't heard it, give that a listen. Now we got Steve Perry. I was a big Journey fan. I wasn't in the Journey early on, before Steve Perry, of course. There was a different singer. But this is his solo album, Street Talk. We don't have a date on this, but it was April 84. Wow, that long ago. 84 for Steve Perry.
Yep.
It's his first solo album. And of course, it had the hit song "Oh Sherry," which I heard, a million times.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was the one.
That's on the list of songs that, you don't really need to hear anymore.
No, for sure.
And, along with every Bon Jovi song. I just want to throw that out there.
You mentioned Sweet Home Alabama earlier. That's actually on my list of songs I could never hear again and be okay too.
So the song went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on Billboard's rock chart. Now, this song was written for his then-girlfriend, Sherry Swafford.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually written, her name's in the song, Oh Sherry. And she was in the video. That was a hit on MTV.
Did their love hold on or something?
I don't know. I think he was stoned in love. Other singles included Foolish Heart, She's Mine, and Strung Out. I don't know Strung Out.
I don't know that one either. I know the other two. I like Journey. We've talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I have checked out Steve Perry's solo stuff, and it was okay. I mean, it sounded a lot like Journey, but...
I'd go see Journey, but, Steve Perry, I have a feeling he's never going to be back in Journey, even though he put out, Christmas album and a solo album recently, last 5-6 years.
Yep.
It's just weird hearing him sing Christmas songs, I have to admit. Now, there were a number of nods to Perry's pre-Journey band Alien Project on this album. I didn't even know Alien Project, because the band, in fact, was originally going to be called Street Talk. And in the liner notes, Steve Perry dedicates the album to Richard Michaels, the bassist for Alien Project.
I was going to say...
Not Michael Richards.
The guy from Seinfeld? Kramer?
Yeah, Kramer. Also, drummer Craig Krampf was a member of Alien Project late in the 1970s. Oh, also, in addition to launching Steve Perry's solo career, the cover photo for Street Talk served as a career launchpad for music photographer John Scarpati, who met Steve Perry during the album's recording sessions at a studio in Sherman Oaks. Some of his famous covers were Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In, Warrant Cherry Pie, and Rush's albums. I love Rush, but I actually didn't know about the album Presto. There's an album called... And Roll the Bones, I think I knew about. They're kind of obscure Rush albums. But I have a side note that the song Roll the Bones is just a great song. So, okay. Rush, Roll the Bones.
Check that one out. I don't know if I know it or not.
Then we have a couple honorable mentions, which is Bananarama, their self-titled album. This is their second album, and it had the song Cruel Summer on it. And the song was bolstered by the song's inclusion in the soundtrack to the 1984 film The Karate Kid. We got Styx, Caught in the Act. I don't have a date, which is a live double album.
Is that still Dennis DeYoung at that time? Or were they on to Tommy Shaw by then?
I don't know. This is 84.
Okay.
It might have been Tommy Shaw. I'm not sure. I only got in them... what did I get into them? Probably with this song Babe and
I love Babe.
Paradise Theater album. I can't believe I don't have that album. I've got to...
Fooling Yourself was always my favorite.
Yeah.
But the joke is Dennis DeYoung was Come Sail Away. So like all the lovey type stuff with Styx was always Dennis DeYoung.
Yeah.
I was curious.
So this was a live album. They did have a new song in there called Music Time. I have no idea what that song sounds like. Oh, here it is. Shortly after this album's release, Tommy Shaw announced his departure from the band.
Okay.
To pursue a solo career. Okay, now we're up to 94. Now we're in April. Our next podcast, we're reviewing Dave Grohl's book. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Nirvana. And I really don't want to, I didn't even want to mention this, but April 8th is when Kurt Cobain's body was found. It's still hits hard for me because I love Nirvana, and my biggest regret, like I probably said before, is not ever seeing them, play.
Right.
And say what you will about Nirvana, they pretty much created a genre. Maybe they didn't create it solely. I know there were other bands at the time and bands that they followed, lesser known bands. Well, you had Soundgarden, they became pretty big. But bands like Screaming Trees.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm trying to think of the other band that Kurt Cobain was really into, and they were a Seattle band. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But so anyway, yeah, April 8th, that's when Kurt Cobain was found. April 25th, Adam Horovitz of the Beastie Boys is sentenced to 200 hours of community service for attacking a television cameraman during funeral services for actor River Phoenix.
He probably deserved it. The cameraman, that is.
April 27th, the legendary Fillmore Club reopens in San Francisco, which with a concert headlined by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Nice.
So albums, April 1994, we have The Offspring, Smash.
Yes.
I know Jeremy's a big Offspring.
I love The Offspring. That's a good album, too.
I'm trying more and more not to listen to, or try to listen to albums during the anniversary, because if I don't have it, then I'm like buying the album just to listen to. But I mean, I can go on Apple Music, but... So The Offspring, this is their third studio album, American rock band. I used to leave this stuff out with American, English, but we have a lot of listeners out there, and I thank people for listening, but we have in other countries, you won't believe, even Estonia, Australia, we mentioned, England, Germany, like you name it. I think I counted the one time 25 different countries. Awesome. Whether it's one listener, you're out there, but we really appreciate everybody. So anyway, The Offspring, American rock band. After touring in support of their previous album, Ignition, from 1992, The band recorded their next album over 2 months at Track Record in North Hollywood, California. Now, this marks the first time where Dexter Holland is credited with playing the guitar as opposed to vocals only. But it's only their third. So the first two, I guess whether he played guitar, he didn't play much, or he just wasn't credited. This was the Offspring's introduction into worldwide popularity and produced a number of hit singles, including Come Out and Play, Self-Esteem, Gotta Get Away. Yep. Along with Green Day's Dookie, Smash was responsible for bringing punk rock into the mainstream and helped pave the way for the then emerging pop-punk scene of the 1990s. Peaking at number 4, U.S. Billboard 200, Smash has sold over 11 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling album released by an independent record label.
It was a good album. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, that was definitely one of my I played it a lot albums.
So I didn't know it was
Dookie's one too.
but it's the best, it's literally the best-selling album released by an independent label.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Incredible. So we got Hole, Nirvana Link, of course, Courtney Love, Live Through This. This is their second album. I think I had the first and second one April 12th, 94. What's interesting is this is released not even a week after Kurt Cobain passes away. And of course, they recorded it way before.
Right.
Courtney Love said she wanted the record to be shocking to the people who think that we don't have a soft edge, but maintain a harsh sensibility. And the lyrics reflect Courtney Love's thematic preoccupations with beauty. I don't know, it says motifs of milk. I don't know what the hell that is. Motherhood, anti-elitism, and violence against women. Well, Love derived the album title from a quote in Gone with the Wind. It was met with critical acclaim and charted in 9 countries before going multi-platinum in the U.S. in December 94. It was also the subject of some public discussion regarding unsubstantiated rumors that her late husband, Kurt Cobain, says who died by suicide. I think that's wrong. I'm going to have to change that on Wikipedia. That he helped ghostwrite the album. This claim has disputed by the band members, producers, as well as music biographers, though the band confirmed that Cobain sang additional backing vocals on 2 tracks during a visit to the studio. And it's the only whole album to feature bassist Christine Pfaff, and the final album to be released during her lifetime. She died 2 months after the album's release, and I actually remember that. I think it was a drug overdose. Now, the other thing is this album was dedicated in memory of Joe Cole. He was a roadie for Black Flag and the Rollins Band. I'm not going to get into this either, but, there's some sad things in here. But City Gardens was a club in Trenton, and Henry Rollins was doing spoken word. It was about 1990. Let's see, what year is this? What year are we on? 94?
Yeah.
I think it was right after. Oh, okay. So Joe Cole was murdered in December 91. I saw Henry in 92. And it was probably like early 92. And he was there when they got robbed and his friend was shot, killed.
Right.
So anyway, the album's dedicated to Joe. So now we have an album that I'm very familiar with, and a band is the Smithereens.
There you go.
A date with the Smithereens, April 26th. This was the 5th album, New Jersey, USA rock band, the Smithereens. Now, the album was originally planned to be released about a year before it actually was, but Capitol Records was near dropping the Smithereens. And the reason for this was a change in leadership at the label. In the post-Nirvana climate of grunge music, the pop rock sound of their previous album, Blow Up, was considered old hat, despite the album including the band's second top 40 hit, Too Much Passion. Now, Butch Vig, who's in Garbage,
right,
but he's also a producer, he was going to produce this album. So because of his departure, it convinced Capitol Records to drop the Smithereens from the label. Because he was going on to produce the Smashing Pumpkins. I think it was Siamese Dream he was producing. The recording was postponed to February 93. So 2 weeks after they were dropped by Capitol, they were signed by RCA Records. The Smithereens decided to work with, and we mentioned him, Don Dixon again. Because Don Dixon produced some Smithereens albums. He also did REM. So let's see. Honorable mention, and I have one, and maybe you don't know this, Jeremy. I just found this out. but it's someone we're going to meet. I'm going to meet tomorrow. Oh. Maybe you've met her, but it's Katie Segal.
Mm-hmm.
She actually recorded an album.
Okay. I have heard this in the past.
Her first album came out April 19th, 94, and it's called Well, okay. Well, released by Virgin Records. Album peaked at number 33 on the Billboard's Heat Seekers album chart. Now, her next album wasn't until 2004. She has 3 albums, and her last album was 2013.
Okay. So just about every 10 years.
Yeah. So she's due for a new one. Okay. I might ask her.
There you go.
I should have found the album, and she probably would know, where the hell did you get that? Okay, so that does it for album anniversaries.
There's some good albums on that list. Not that there never is, but wow, smash. It's hard to believe we're talking 30 years ago already. My dad actually didn't like me listening to The Offspring.
No. So I've got a couple music news stories.
Okay.
Now these might be old by now, but I wanted to talk about the Beatles. I have 2 Beatles stories.
Oh, fun.
And then we'll see if Jeremy has anything. Now this is the Beatles and the Grammys. So the Beatles actually have an interesting history with the Grammys. In the early days of the Grammy Awards, it was mostly an anti-rock and roll event. You know, more traditional, like crooners, singers dominated the nominations.
Right.
But over the years, things started to change, and the Beatles helped turn things around. So in 1965, they had 4 nominations, winning Best Performance by a Vocal Group for A Hard Day's Night. And even though they had 6 U.S. releases at the time, they won for Best New Artist in 1964. The following year, they were the first rock band to be nominated for Album of the Year with their album Help. They missed out to then Grammy's favorite Frank Sinatra with September of My Years. So 2 opposite. Eventually, the Beatles racked up 6 wins by 1971. Also, Best Historical Album in 2011 for the Beatles, the original studio recordings, a.k.a. the Beatles stereo box set. If you heard the Beatles won an award in 2024, you might just assume it was for their newly remastered song Now and Then, but it wasn't.
Right. Because
the eligibility is kind of early. It was from October 1st, 2022 to September 15th, 2023. And that was 6 weeks before the release of Now and Then. So the Beatles actually won a Grammy, this last Grammys, for an older song.
Awesome.
For a 58-year-old song. Have you heard this?
No, I haven't, actually.
For the song I'm Only Sleeping. It was released back in 1966.
Interesting.
On Revolver. Now, this was for the video. Some guy created, because they had remastered, I would assume, this song. And maybe I should know this, but maybe it was on their one of the remastered, either the red or the blue.
Right.
The guy was directed by E.M. Cooper. And the video has over 1,300 film cells painted individually to create the video.
Wow.
So basically, they won a Grammy for the video. And this is a woman, by the way. But she spoke to a publication called Animation World, said, literally, I paint and then I shoot that individual frame straight away, and then I move on to the next one. I'm sure it's sort of like stop motion process.
Yep.
She says it's like paint. I shoot it, then repaint. I might wipe it and repaint or keep it. So there's a lot going on there. And she says it's like it's painted on glass. Now, the video beat out Billie Eilish and Kendrick Lamar, he's a rapper, but he's, a favorite.
Yep.
Now, what's unbelievable is that this is the Beatles' 7th Grammy win out of 7 nominations since 97. They won all the nominations. And they've actually now won more Grammys than between 65 and 71, or around that time when they were together, to 70. I have 71 here, when they won 6 total Grammy Awards. So since 97, they've won more than they won when they were actually, I'd say, bigger. I mean, a lot of people still listen to the Beatles and love them. So
Right.
So that's my first Beatles story.
Okay. Were they both Beatles stories?
Yeah.
Okay. The only one that I wanted to touch on, it's kind of short and sweet, but I think we try to cover all genres of music on the show, but you and I love kind of the same classic rock alternative. Yeah. So we maybe focus on that stuff more so than rap or hip hop, whatever. But Toby
or
Keith,
jazz, which you don't like.
Yeah. Toby Keith recently passed away.
Oh yeah.
And while I'm not a big country person, it's a name that's recognizable.
Oh yeah.
It's someone that you've heard music from at some point, whether you realize it or not. And I just think it's someone who doesn't get the recognition that they deserve, because he was a very brilliant artist.
And what I've seen, I like country, but I wasn't a big like Toby Keith fan, but I knew who he was. And I think after he passed away, I watched more interviews and stuff and videos, like one of his last videos, and he seemed like a genuine human being, and that's what should be celebrated.
Agreed.
As a person like that.
It's similar. I heard the news, and I'm not a big country fan, so I didn't go out of my way to necessarily listen to his music, but I did the same thing. I started looking up maybe some of the things that he had done, and it just looked like he was dedicated to the fans, always appreciated the support that he received, and, lyrically, he produced some fantastic songs that were very high on the charts.
Yeah.
He produced a lot of good albums, so I just wanted to give some recognition to Toby Keith, because, we try to cover all genres on the show, and maybe country doesn't get the recognition that it deserves sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's someone that's probably, close to that Mount Rushmore of country artists for a lot of fans.
Yeah, yeah. So I have another Beatles story.
Okay.
This one I think is short. I just wanted to mention, this is from an article on, I don't know what this website is, salon.com. It sounds like, for hair care.
Yeah.
But from February 20th by Nardos Hale. And it's mentioning, and I'm sure people might have heard of this, but there's going to be a 4-part Beatles biopic coming out on, the 4 members of the Beatles.
Yep.
Now it says, they haven't even filmed it yet, but it says it's coming to a theater near you in 2027.
Oh, all right.
So if we're still doing the podcast, we'll talk about it.
We'll review that one. There you go. Perfect.
So it's an expansive 4-part biopic series on each of the Beatle members. This will be the first time that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr and the families of Lennon and Harrison have all granted the rights to a filmmaker to tell the life of each band member, and includes the music rights for the scripted films. So what it is, it's going to be 4 different, I think, perspectives, which is interesting. We're going to have Paul, we're going to have Ringo, George, and John. So those are going to be the 4 parts. I think focusing on each one of them individually. I don't know if people are going to be playing them.
Right.
I think I've seen most of the footage on the Beatles over the years. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think there's a name for it or anything yet. Now, the person doing this, I don't know if you met this person, Jeremy. The person who's the filmmaker who's doing this.
Okay.
But his name is Sam Mendes. But he's directed American Beauty. I know you like that movie.
I do like that movie.
He did Skyfall and 1917.
Okay.
So he's Oscar-winning filmmaker. So we got some like big power behind this movie. It's not some Beatles fan like like me or you or decide we want to do a Beatles documentary.
Right.
So,
speaking of movies, did you see the Amy Winehouse movie that's due to come out this year?
No.
That looks really good.
I like Amy Winehouse.
It's one that, check out the preview, but we should maybe cover that as a topic on the show at some point. It looked phenomenal. And it looked like it went into her depression and some of the, the deep, dark stuff.
So someone's playing her?
Yes.
There's a woman I follow. I think her band is called Dear Amy or something like that. I wish I didn't remember the name. But she looks really close to Amy Winehouse and sounds like her. And she has a full band. And she even has, I don't know if the tattoos are real. They have to be. She has the same tattoos, and she has like a wig, I think. And she's doesn't look hokey, and she's not trying to really like look like her by getting plastic surgery or anything like that. But she's really close. Of course, you can't see Amy Winehouse,
Right.
But that's the closest now. I'm wondering if maybe they got her to...
Don't know.
I saw it's a sad documentary, but I think it's just called Amy. I've watched that a couple times, But I remember I was with my friends. We used to, well, we still do. Every 5 years we get together, and we were away for the weekend. I remember none of my friends were like into Amy Winehouse for some reason.
She's different. You gotta, not in a bad way. Just she's got a very unique voice.
But I saw it come up, and it was just pretty sad for me that day. So next, I got some music books. We've done this before. And one of these I actually pre-ordered. I have a ton of books that I haven't read, and Jeremy and I both got done reading Dave Grohl's book, like we said, and that podcast will come out after this one. So we got April 2nd. It's The Beach Boys by The Beach Boys.
Oh, okay.
But it's a pretty pricey book. It's $65 on Amazon.
Well, it's not too bad.
Now, it says this is the first time in print. I don't know where else it would have been. Is the history of the Beach Boys by the Beach Boys. Their only official book. Ultimate chronicle of one of the world's greatest bands through their unique sound, complex harmonies, sensational live shows, and use of innovative recording techniques. The Beach Boys became woven in the cultural fabric of America and influenced generations of musicians globally. And the book documents how it happened. So Brian Wilson, Mike Love, Al Jardine, and Bruce Johnston together provide a combined career narrative, especially for this book, and through meticulous compilation from sources worldwide. And Carl Wilson and Dennis Wilson's words are equally represented. So if you're a Beach Boys fan, it's just called Beach Boys by the Beach Boys. And that's April 2nd. That's released.
Picking up some good vibrations on that one.
Now, this is the one I pre-ordered. All You Need Is Love, The Beatles in Their Own Words, unpublished, unvarnished, and told by the Beatles and their inner circle.
Okay.
It's by Peter Brown and Stephen Gaines.
Told by at least half of the Beatles, right?
Well, no, they probably take it from interviews.
Oh, okay.
But it says unpublished. But that doesn't mean if it was like John Lennon was interviewed on a TV show.
Right.
Still unpublished, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
$23, April 9th it comes out. An oral history of the Beatles from never before seen interviews. All You Need Is Love is a groundbreaking oral history of one of the most enduring musical acts of all time. And of course we have intimate interviews with the Beatles, their families, friends, business associates that were conducted by Beatles intimate Peter Brown and author Stephen Gaines in 1980 to 81 during the preparation of their international bestseller, The Love You Make, which spent 4 months on the New York Times bestseller list in 1983, remains the biggest selling biography worldwide about the Beatles. So it sounds like they had so much information that it was never put into that book.
Gonna give you another book.
When a band does, the Beatles were well known for doing like 23 takes of a song. And then eventually they came out with not the one you heard on the radio, but the other ones. So, it was extra.
Yep.
So we have interviews with Paul, Yoko, Ringo, George, Brown, and Gaines. Also include interviews from ex-wives Cynthia Lennon, Patty Harrison Clapton, Maureen Starkey, as well as the major social and business figures of the Beatles' inner circle, like we said. So I'm going to read that book. I don't know if I'll review it. Maybe I'll just talk a little bit about it when I get it. So look for that.
We need more beer.
Yeah, we do. Text to bring us some beer. Oh, I didn't drink. Oh, mine. So we have new album releases. These are for April. Yeah, we like to be a month ahead because I never know when the podcast is coming out.
Right.
Like Jeremy, I give a shout out to Jeremy's podcast. HorrorCon Lounge.
You got it.
Yeah, if you like horror movies. But I was just going to mention that Jeremy and Kristen's podcast is weekly. I know they record a bunch. Like we record, we're usually 2, and
we've been hanging in there for the weekly.
Yeah.
Luckily.
It's a lot. It's a lot of, I have to say, behind the scenes, a lot of editing. I could put the podcast out like this, maybe. You're going to hear me say and so, and I mean, I'm a little bit anal with that. I'm not trying to perfect it,
Right.
But make it flow a little bit more. Like when my laptop here, which is also a tablet, like doesn't work right.
And you're cursing at
it
right at the floor.
So anyway, new album releases for April. We got April 5th, The Black Keys. And I was confused because the album's called Ohio Players, and there was a band called Ohio Players.
Oh, okay.
I had to do some research, and it has nothing to do with them. It's just called that.
Okay.
The kids out there like Vampire Weekend, I don't know too much about them, but I thought I'd put this on here. Only God Was Above Us.
Okay.
I mean, they seem pretty big still. They're on Columbia.
Yeah.
April 12th, Maggie Rogers. I've listened to her last album. She's sort of, I don't say folk, but kind of just guitar and not real, just light. I'd say light kind of music, For Don't Forget Me. And Jeremy, Jeremy is a huge fan. Over the years, Jeremy, all he talks about is this band called Shabaka. Okay. Not to be confused with Chewbacca. I'm just joking. Perceive its beauty, acknowledge its grace. I don't know. I'm just throwing this band out. I have no idea. I didn't even listen. April 19th. This is a new artist, Bruce Springsteen. No, I'm just kidding. Best of Bruce Springsteen. Mm-hmm. The best of's coming out. Expanded edition.
Okay.
How'd they get all these songs on one album? I like Bruce, so I don't say there's any songs I really hate, but like if I made a best of, it would be, a lot of songs. Well, it would be like the U2, like when U2 re-recorded their songs. It was like 4 albums.
I was going to say the best of was multiple albums.
Yeah. The new Pearl Jam. I think I heard the new song. I think the song's called Dark Matter.
I believe it is. Yeah. And it's out there somewhere because they teased it. I saw them post that somewhere.
They did post the song. I heard it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's up on the music, sources. And I don't know if any listeners out there know this name, but Taylor Swift. I'm trying not to mention her. We like Taylor Swift. We still like her.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Hate us. I don't care. The Tortured Poets Department. That's what it's called.
Going back to Taylor Swift for a second. We're going to a show tomorrow. Well, we'll have already gone to the show when this releases.
Yeah, autograph show.
There is a Taylor Swift horror mashup photo that I have to look for.
Okay.
And I'm curious to see what they did. So.
Okay. Okay, April 26th, someone that I like. I think Jeremy does too. Neil Young has another album, and Crazy Horse. And it's called, I can say it, Fucking Up. Mm-hmm. It's with hash marks.
Yeah.
That's going to actually be released on Record Store Day.
He's like an ageless wonder. And who is hosting Record Store Day?
That girl from Paramore.
Yeah.
Haley, is that right?
Yeah. We talked. That was one of our news articles from last time. Yeah. I don't know if you remembered or not.
We still don't find out if she's performing or not, but I assume.
Oh, no.
Or if there's a parade or anything. Now, this comes out on Record Store Day, which is April 20th. There is a catch. On Record Store Day, a clear vinyl 2LP limited edition will include a litho print of the album cover art and will be available, let's see. It's going to only be available through the Greedy Hand Store via Neil Young Archives website. Only, which is a unique arrangement with Record Store Day because it's going to be sold outside of participating Record Store Day stores. It's not going to be in the store.
Interesting.
It's only going to be online when you can order it. Okay. He's always thinking up crazy stuff.
Yeah.
He had this little device, like an iPod. I forget what it was called called Pony, or I forget what the freaking thing was called. And he was trying to sell the digital recordings that you could only be played on this thing. That was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened with it.
Now, are these things signed, or is it just a lithograph, like illustration or something?
It says a litho print of the album cover art. So,
okay.
I mean, maybe there is a signed one. That's probably like $1,000. Yeah. So this is Neil Young and Crazy Horse's 16th studio album. Okay, and then another one we got is Pet Shop Boys, which I kind of liked back then.
I have not heard them in forever.
It's called Nonetheless. It's their 15th studio album.
15.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I only know West End Girls.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but...
Yeah, there's some other songs I knew at the time.
Okay.
Let's see. St. Vincent, All Born Screaming. I've listened to her. This seventh studio album. Now, it also features other musicians, most of which I don't know, except Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl's on, I think, one song.
Okay.
Now, I have a couple of recommendations, things I've been listening to. Liam Gallagher and John Squire. I've mentioned this, I think, on the last podcast, but now it's out. It's simply, I think, an amazing album. A lot of upbeat tunes. And Liam Gallagher, of course, from Oasis.
I was going to say, does it sound anything like Oasis or different?
It kind of does because it's Liam,
okay.
But it doesn't sound as Beatlesque as, Oasis, which I think they were trying to be the next Beatles.
Right.
John Squires with the Stone Roses. It came out March 1st. Check out the song Just Another Rainbow. The guitar on this song is just amazing. I'm pretty sure I know Liam, this is the odd thing, Liam doesn't play an instrument at all.
Right.
Never has.
Right.
And there's one song I simply freaking love. It's called Make It Up As You Go Along. This is the most Beatlesque, kind of folky. I have Diddy here. And the ending line on the chorus, he says a couple times, is just great. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers, and fuck you too.
Okay.
But it's like, it's got that kind of flow to it.
Okay.
And it's kind of it's not a ballad, but it's not a rocker either. The melody is just really good on that song. And don't forget, we mentioned this before, about the album I Got Heaven, Jeremy, by Mannequin Pussy. Okay?
Yes.
I actually listened to some of this, and it's heavy alternative.
Okay.
Like it's actually decent. I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Right.
They got other stuff to do. So there's one more album, and I think I've mentioned it before, but the new Rod Stewart album came out. So Rod Stewart put out an album with Jools Holland. Jools Holland, who was in Squeeze in the early days, and has an incredible show in the UK called Later with Jools Holland, and also the New Year's Eve special. And I used to get the show, and I've mentioned it before, is that he has 5 different, it's one stage, but there's 5 different bands there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it could be Tom Jones, it could be Elton John, but it could also be, smaller bands. It could be Greta Van Fleet, and even, bands that are up and coming or have a first album out. So there's a good combination there. And they'll each play a song. The camera moves to the next band. They break for a commercial once in a while. But this is an incredible album. Not many people, if you don't like swing music, but you don't have to, you're not getting up and dancing. But this is just, I listened to this album 3 times. I had it on the yesterday, towards the end of the day at work. My business partner, she was decorating our front window in our shop, and we didn't really have any customers in there, so I put this on, not real loud, but it's you listen to this and you feel happy about these songs.
Okay.
Because it's standard songs. It's almost like Being in Love, Them Their Eyes, songs like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Lullaby of Broadway, stuff like that. But with a full band, and Jools Holland plays piano. He's these are really great musicians. Matt and I interviewed Dave Swift, his name is, and he is the bass player for Jools Holland's band. And Dave, I can't believe, he is such an incredible person. I asked him if he'd record a little audio for us, and I know he's busy. He's rehearsing for like shows.
Right.
And because they still film later with Jools Holland, and they're doing shows with Rod too. And he took the time and he sent me audio, and we're going to play it. And it's 6 minutes long, but he's going to tell us about the time Rod pulled up. We'll let him tell you, but I'm going to tell you when he pulled up in his white limo to the recording studio and got out. And it's such a fun time for him. He's just a pretty like meek guy, even though he's in this band. And I think he kind of has to take a step back to, you have to think, yeah, these people are human, but they're so famous,
right.
And there you are recording with them. So we're going to play Dave's audio. And then when we come back, we'll have our last segment. Well, one of our last segments, and we're going to be doing Give This a Listen, which you've done last time.
Okay.
So here's Dave Swift. Thank you, Dave.
I think it was the last day of January 2022 was the first day that we met Rod, and it was the first day that we started recording the album, and it was at Jools Holland's private studio called Helicon Mountain. And I remember Rod turning up with his driver in a white Rolls Royce, which was it's quite the sight, really, seeing that outside Jools' studio in a very quiet, leafy Greenwich. But that's how Rod travels, always in style. But yeah, he came into the studio and we played through one or two of the tracks. And Rod was just listening intently. And then when we'd finished, he turned round to us and basically said, "Oh, that all sounds marvellous. Let's all go to the pub and have a pint." And I suppose that was his way of sort of saying that everything he heard he loved and that all was well. And that we're going to have a great time here. There's going to be no problems. He just felt really at ease with the whole thing. So we didn't dash off to the pub for a pint, I hasten to add. We did carry on recording, although he did get his driver to go out and get him a bottle of white wine from the nearest shop, which I don't think had the best selection of fine wines at all. It was just a very basic sort of corner shop newsagents. But he still drank the wine anyway, so it couldn't have been too bad. Rod's does have a favourite track off the album, and it's the first one on it, which is Lullaby of Broadway. Now, apparently Rod loves those old black and white movies, the Busby Berkeley films, and Busby Berkeley was a film director and choreographer, and he was known for his very elaborate dancing girl extravaganzas. There were lots and lots of dancers on the set, doing these amazing show-stopping dance routines. So Rod had seen these movies, and he was particularly taken with the tap dancers. So he wanted that sound on the album. But the thing is, he didn't want to create the sound of tap dancing electronically using software. He wanted real tap dancers. So basically, Jools went to Rod's house, and Rod had hired a load of real professional tap dancers, and they were all there, and they'd got microphones, and they'd mic'd up the wooden floor, and the dancers did their routine, they recorded it, and that's what you hear on the first track of the new album, on Lullaby of Broadway. Those are real tap dancers on there. We actually had two producers on this album, because we started off with Nitin Sawhney, and Nitin was supposed to be the producer for the whole thing, but for whatever reason, he started producing the album, and then he had some commitments which he couldn't get out of, so he had to leave in the middle of the record. And then the producer that took over was Phil Manzanera, who we'd met before also, but Phil famously was or perhaps still is the lead guitarist in the band Roxy Music, but he didn't play guitar on the record at this time. He was purely producing. So, but both of them were great. We know them both and we worked with them both, so they did a great job. But it was quite unusual having two producers on the one album. We weren't quite expecting that when we started. My favourite track, I suppose, on the album, because they're all pretty good, so it's difficult to choose from, but I would say, at a push, the track Almost Like Being in Love is my favourite. And I think it's because when I do work outside of Jools, I do a lot of jazz gigs with my wife Lucy, who's a professional jazz singer, Lucy Marilyn. And Almost Like Being in Love is one of my favourite songs to play. I think it's just got a great melody, and I love the chord sequence too. So yeah, if I had to pick one, it would be Almost Like Being in Love. And I also remember, we had a great deal of fun with this album because Rod is such a great guy to work with, as is Jools Holland. But Rod, considering that he was 77, I think, when we first started recording that album back in 2022. He was so full of energy and life and enthusiasm, and he had such a good vibe. You thought you were in a room with someone in their 20s, and I think we all enjoyed that energy, and it sort of, it really inspired us to do what we did. So he was a great guy to have around, very, very encouraging, very positive, very up, super fit, super healthy. So, yeah, it was a real joy working with him and making this album. And it's great, of course, the fact that it has gone to number 1 in the UK album charts. But he was such a nice guy. And at the end of the whole recording, the very last recording session for the record, he came into the room where the band were, the live room, and he said, "God, you guys are amazing. I want everyone to have an extra bonus on me on top of the fee that you're getting paid for," which he didn't have to do, because we were already getting paid for playing on the album. But the fact he out of his own pocket, he offered an extra bonus fee to every person who played on the record. So that was really, really kind of him and completely unexpected. So yeah. The whole process was an absolute joy.
Okay, now we have yet another new segment, and it's called "What's in Rob's Vinyl Pile?"
Oh boy!
So, I buy a lot of used albums, but I also buy. I'm trying not to buy too many of the reissued because they're expensive.
Right.
As Jeremy can see over there, those are all reissues.
Yeah.
At about $30-$40 a piece.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yep.
We have a great record store, Spin Me Around. I'll give them a shout out. It's in Easton, Pennsylvania. They have albums from $5, $8, but not they also have the remastered ones and the reissued. They do record store day and everything. Some of these in this pile I actually got from my friend Tim. Unfortunately, his father passed away probably a couple of years ago, but I went over there and he showed me, he knows I collect vinyl. He's like, go through those albums if you want any, just take them. But they weren't beat up, but they needed to be cleaned. So I have this I think it's called Spin-O-Matic it's a wash, but you have to you have to spin it by hand, which is fine. So I actually pull albums that I'm going to listen to this could be the next month. I try to listen to a couple a week, so anyway, this is what's in my pile here to listen to. There's some odd ones, some ones you may not recognize. So we got Kenny Loggins and Loggins and Messina sitting in. They're sitting at a bar.
Yep.
Oh, they're playing poker. Yeah. Matt and I plan on doing. Jeremy probably won't join us next month. I'm giving Jeremy a break. Matt and I are going to be talking about yacht rock.
Okay.
So I wanted to get my Loggins and Messina in.
Okay.
This one is from Sweden, and it's Vissor till Salmons, if I'm saying it right. And it's John Ulf Anderson, not John Anderson from, Yes. And Bjorn Johansson. Maybe it's Scarlett's father. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's actually signed.
Wow.
And I got this in Sweden, and I think it's an instrumental. Jeremy would never listen to that because it's Swedish instrumental.
Yeah.
And then I got Led Zeppelin, and this is the 180-gram vinyl of their first album, their debut. So I'm going to be listening to that. I love Linda Ronstadt. I pulled a couple Linda Ronstadt and Nelson Riddle Orchestra. We got Leon Russell, Carney. Loverboy, I just got this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
turn him loose.
And I think this might be their, I don't know if it's their first one or second one.
Okay.
The other one has someone's leather butt on it. This girl's smoking a joint or a cigarette. Another Linda Ronstadt, which I had as a kid, living in the USA. She's on roller skates. This one I got from Tim, the Beach Boys, Surfing USA. It is actually the first Beach Boys album I ever owned. Except, well, I did own a CD that was a best of.
Okay.
Whatever that summer CD is with the sunset, and there's like, you know, the best of on there. This is another one Tim gave me, Ray Charles, Ingredients and a Recipe for Soul, like Ray Charles. And this album was in, the next one is Mamas and Papas, 16 of the Greatest Hits.
Okay. And
And this album, I think, was in with this one, which is a bonus, Elton John Greatest Hits.
oh,
Happened to be in there.
nice.
This is another one Tim get, Roger Miller. Do you know Roger Miller?
I don't.
King of the Road. King of the Road? No?
No.
Okay. So this is kind of I think it's a greatest hit. Featuring King of the Road and Do Wackadoo. Do Wackadoo.
Okay.
The Kinks.
I know
Low
that.
budget.
I see the river.
And I just got this one. And it was $12.99. Bruce Springsteen, The River.
First time I ever saw Bruce Springsteen, that's the album they were performing on that tour.
This album, my parents, when we talked about the Christmas, our Christmas show, that was one of the gifts. And my parents never, ever bought me an album. They didn't want me buying albums, spending money.
Right.
We got Utopia to Face the Music. I got this from Tim, too. And this one, Fiona Flanagan. And she is from Phillipsburg, New Jersey, my hometown. Been trying to get her for an interview. Her parents still live in Phillipsburg. She's actually told me during the holidays she drove through Washington, where I live, so she could actually come over here. But Fiona was...
Interesting.
She wasn't huge, Fiona Flanagan, and she was in actually a movie with Bob Dylan, and then she was famously in a video with Kip Winger.
Okay.
And I think it's called Sex Me or something. So, if any kids are listening, don't look that up. Okay. That video. It's yeah, anyway. So that's what's in my pile. So I'll be listening to this. Okay, now we're going to do our last segment called Give It a Listen.
All right.
So two artists again, you may not have heard of, so they're fairly new, but they have new albums coming out. And the first artist is a guy named Cris Jacobs. The song is called Daughter, Daughter. I got permission from Jim Flamia at All Eyes Media to play part of this song. And All Eyes Media, they have offices in Nashville, Chicago, and New York. We're actually going to play it now, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about it when we come back.
Daughter, daughter, flesh and blood, if I could rid it all, I would. Every bullet that I found and melted down into the ground. Hopeless feeling that I can't see what's coming around the bend. Gotta keep my eyes wide open, but be blind enough to cope. And don't forget to say your prayers, brush your teeth and comb your
hair. Okay, so that was Cris Jacobs with Daughter, Daughter, and Cris says he should have never had to have written that song. It's a reflection on raising children in an increasingly violent society. Cris says that one evening, after a soulful conversation with a friend, a fellow musician, and Father Paul, ruminating on how to change the world, the song poured out of me, part blues, part prayer, a plea of some sort of answer. It's a helpless feeling. So this song features Jerry Douglas on the lap steel guitar. And if no one knows who Jerry Douglas is, he is in Alison Krauss's band, Union Station. He's worked with Elvis Costello, Eric Clapton, Mumford & Sons, and the list goes on. He's won 14 Grammys. So this is the guy that produced this album. He's a person I like to interview. The album is called One of These Days. And is that a Honeymooners reference? You know,
or a Foo Fighters reference.
Yeah. And the album features the infamous String Dusters, Leanne Womack, Billy String, Sam Bush, Lindsay Lou, and the McCrary Sisters. Now, the album is out April 26th. So if you like the sound of that song we just played, check it out. Tell your friends. And Cris Jacobs makes his Grand Ole Opry debut on April 27th.
Oh, okay.
Next, we have the artist Imogen Clark. She is not just an artist, she's a storyteller, a fighter, and a dreamer. I'm reading from her bio, of course. She spent her teen years at Penrith High by day and playing Western Sydney bars at night. Yes, she's Australian.
Okay.
Learning how to make her voice hear and honing her chops as an electric live performer, inspired by legends like Bruce Springsteen, Sheryl Crow, as well as contemporary artists like Maggie Rogers and Haim. Nothing showcases her determined spirit than her achievements over the past 3 years. She has 2 acclaimed EPs, 2020's The Making of Me, and 2021's AIR-nominated Bastards. Her ambitious 100 shows in 100 days tour, and her annual holiday hootenanny show. So she did 100 shows in 100 days.
All right.
She's a sought-after collaborator. She's worked with iconic figures and contemporary indie stars like Alex Leahy, Colin Hay. I actually looked up this. She did a song with Colin Hay from Men at Work.
Okay.
Members of Tom Petty's Heartbreakers, Elvis Costello's Imposters, the band Dolls, My Morning Jacket. Now her new album is called The Art of Getting Through. Be released May 31st. And you can get our album from our website at imogenclark.com.au, which is, you know, the Australian website.
Yep.
It's going to be on vinyl, CD, and download. We got permission from Monica at Think Press to play one of the new singles from the upcoming album, and the song is called All Hard Feelings. And this is a great song. I really love this song. And hopefully you'll check out more of her songs in our album. I actually messaged Imogen, and we're trying to work out an interview.
Very cool.
When her album doesn't come out till the end of May. So we thank everybody for listening today. And I'd like to say, if you represent an artist, want to give it a listen, or if you have the rights to your own music, of course, you can email us, because we always need permission to play a song. And we could possibly feature it on this segment of Give It a Listen. You can email us at nogoodmusicpodcast@gmail.com. And we're going to let Imogen take us out with her song, All Hard Feelings. Always remember to turn off the TV
and turn up the music.
I'm a mess, I'm a fraud, give you everything I got. Only see what you want, and what you want is a bomb. So I'll put you in my pocket and I'll carry you around with every fucker who ever let me down. I'm going under, singing I'm over it, fight for the closure. But maybe it don't exist. I love, but I don't let go. Every paper cuts down to the bone. Time doesn't ease my mind, 'cause I'm all hard feelings.
You've been listening to No Good Music, intro and exit music by the band 99%. Today's show is produced and edited by Rob J. Lilly and recorded at the Did You Say 7 Studios in Washington, New Jersey. You can find No Good Music on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Pandora, and almost anywhere you listen to podcasts.